Hi all, welcome to another update. I just wanted to do this one really quickly before we're starting into some more information about potentially following stimuluses. Now, this one is more about you guys know what's out there. It's been spoken in the media, and it's all about, okay, how does this going to work now? So what we've done in our office is we've built some calculators, which we'll be sending out to our business clients who these stimulus will apply to, and will help you actually work out what is going to be your actual stimulus package that applies to you. So we're building them as we speak. Tech team is working around the clock to get them done, so they'll be done soon. I just want to talk to you about the numbers a bit more. So without further ado, let's get into the content. Okay, so a quick bank update for those of you who were on the live webinar the other night with George from Mad Loans. This is what's happening. So banks are all now got their policies almost done. So, but what you should be doing right now is potentially deferring your payments for your loans. That's business loans, chattel mortgages, personal home loans, investment loans. Literally ringing up your banks and putting them on a 6 months hold. So that's a great initiative, and the bank's been working very hard with the government to get that organised. So that's something I think is almost a no-brainer for a lot of people to get that cash flow back in your bank. I'm also asking some of my clients potentially open up a separate bank account, and the repayments that you would have otherwise paid, maybe just pay some of that money into a separate bank account, so then you can track how much money that you've actually saved. So at the end of the day, you can potentially, if you don't need it, pay it all back. Now, things that I really want you to when you speak to your banks is just in terms of the term of the loan. Some banks have discussed that they're going to extend the term of the loan for that extra 6 months. So if you had 20 years on your loan, it'll be 20 years and 6 months. So that's important just to make sure, because if they don't extend the term, what will end up happening is your repayments will start increasing when you do start paying your loan back again. And just find out as well from them about the credit ratings. Obviously, when you normally ask a bank to hold off repayments, usually you're going to the bank's hospital, so to speak, and that will have an adverse effect of your credit rating. So just make sure that that's okay, that nothing's going to happen there. I'm pretty sure the mandate there from APRA is that it won't, but I think it's very important to potentially make that call. Also, the next bit of the bank stuff is the COVID-19 finance assistance. So banks are offering up to $250,000 per business. Typically, it's a 3-year term with no repayments for 6 months. So this money here is supposed to be used for cash flow. It can't be used for any repayment of loans. Obviously, you can look at reverse engineering that somehow, but you can't. It's got to be to basically keep your business going and ticking along. So all the banks are running around trying to get that finance done. So that's another offer, and I've seen interest rates in the 4s of that as well. So again, I'll give you more content as I see it coming through. Now, again, so that's just the cash flow. That's going to be a loan but repaid. Next one I want to talk to you about, this is just hot off the press. It's just come in basically today into my inbox. So the Queensland government COVID-19 job supplement loans. So basically, there's more detail. Like I told you before in my other emails or videos, is that we didn't know what the detail was. All it was about is the government's going to guarantee $250,000 loans to eligible business to keep people employed. Well, now the information is that we know what they're all about. So in effect, there's some more hurdle rates now. So it's actually to pay it's got to be at least 50% of your wages up to $250,000 a loan. Okay, so now we know it's not just 200. How they work the amount of money that you're going to get. So, for instance, if your payroll for the prior year was $1 million, 50% of that is 500,000. Well, then you'd probably be eligible for the whole 250, provided you can meet the other hurdles. All right. So again, if your wages last year was only $200,000, then that's going to mean that your loan maximum is going to be $100,000. You can use this money to pay wages, loan repayments, expenses. You can buy stock. You can't use it for refinancing and buying new assets or new equipment. So what are the hurdles for here? Okay, so you need to be GST registered business with an ABN. You've got to have at least one full-time employee in business and keeping that person employed. and you've got to be in business since the 1st of July 2017. So again, this is for businesses that were already working prior to the crisis that we have now. And you've also got to be able to prove that you have suffered a loss of income due to the current crisis. So the eligible business types that I've looked at this, so it can be sole traders, partnerships, private companies, public companies, trusts. And again, more information about what is a full-time employee. Well, it's a person who works at least 35 hours each week. Now, the good thing about this too is that for people who are self-employed, that's why sole traders, that typically don't have employees. So as long as they can prove that the employee, that the owners work in the business, that can be regarded as employees. So you have to show drawings and stuff of how much you take out. Now, very important, there'll be a lot of other things you need to supply. I think you've got to supply a couple of years' financial statements and so forth. So again, if this is something you want to look at, please let us know. We can help you apply for it and provide the information you need. There is more information about this. It was going to be $250,000 unsecured and all that sort of jazz. Now, what it is now is it's $100,000 is going to be totally unsecured. However, anything over that, they're going to make you enter into a general security agreement, which is pretty much a floating charge over the business goodwill and assets. So that's something you need to think about if you're going to go over that amount. Great thing, it's a 10-year term, and first year, no interest and no repayment necessary, and then interest only for the next 2 years after that, and then P&I until the end, to the end of the 10-year term. Interest rates are 2.5%. Now, the idea is that this is going to close by September. There's that 6-month thing, or if the money runs out. So again, this is something that I think was something to think about, definitely. The website there is www.qwriter.queensland.gov.au. Have a look at that, please, by all means, but please speak to your advisor, because anytime you take on debt in a business, it's important that we recalculate your cash flow and where you're going to put those funds to work. Okay, so make sure that you're not going to have any issues down the track. All right, so the next one I want to talk to you about is the cash flow for business. So a bit more about the numbers and how this is actually going to work for you. You've got a massive amount of clients ringing up about how's this going to work. So it's based about your March BAS. That's going to be the first port of call. So your next BAS in March, or if you're a monthly remitter, it'll be your March IAS, which again, next week will be the time you can start lodging them. Okay, just remember again, and I stress this a lot, it's a credit to your ATO account. However, you can, if you find that your ATO account ends up being in credit, you can apply to the ATO for a refund, and they should be able to pay that into your bank account within 14 days. So how's this going to work? So what I've done here is I've just put a couple of numbers on there, because a lot of clients don't understand how it's going to affect them if they're not employing. So the idea here is that all businesses that are subject to pay-as-you-go withholdings, even if they haven't paid any pay-as-you-go withholdings or don't require to deduct any tax out of people's wages, will be eligible for the payment or the credit. Now, let's look at one particular client, for example. They are a quarterly payer. However, they haven't needed to make withholdings in this last month or quarter. And that might be because they were slow, they didn't pay anyone yet, or they've closed their shop. Okay, so they've had no withholdings. However, how does this work? Well, you'll get a $10,000 credit on the 28th of April. You must lodge it, your BAS, obviously. You can't just expect it to come in. The trigger for this point is having a W1 and a W2 figure on your BAS and lodging the form, okay? So $10,000 will come into your client account on the 20th of April. Another $5,000 will come on the 28th of July. Now, remember, this particular client has no withholdings, and I'm assuming that they've got no withholdings for this whole period, this whole 6 months. So therefore, on the 20th of July, they'll get 5, and they'll get another 5 on the 28th of October. Okay, so this particular client will end up getting $20,000, which is the minimum, which is accordance to what you've heard before. So that's a great incentive. Now, let's assume that this particular business has, over this whole period, has closed their doors, but they've got about $5,000 worth of GST to pay, which is some sales they've made before the crisis hit. Well, in essence, what will happen is that $5,000 won't have to pay that, because obviously the ATO is allowing you to defer your BAS for 4 months, but that $5,000 that you owe the ATO and GST will eat into some of that credit. So in this particular client's case, he will then, in that first pass on the 28th of April, he'll get a credit of $10,000, have to pay $5,000 GST. So his account will be in credit for $5,000. You can then go out and ask for that $5,000 to come back in, and so forth with the other ones. There's no GST because you stop trading. In this example, you're going to get those back in cash. Sorry to go through this really quickly. I just want to make sure that you guys are understanding it, and I know that you guys have been swamped with a zillion different emails and videos. So I just want to go as quick as I can through these. And you can always go back and revisit it, or please call my team and we can go through it then. Okay, so this particular person here, we're assuming that every quarterly BAS, on the BAS, the PAYG component is $15,000. So we're going to say that he's continuing, or they're continuing to trade each quarter, and is around at $15,000. So they haven't got rid of their employees. They've got about a $15,000 amount they have to pay pretty much every quarter. Now, remembering if you're putting people on holiday pay or whatever, you're still going to have to remit PAYG. So this is going to trigger that. So they might not be physically in your office. So in this particular case, this client will, on the 28th of April, once they lodge their activity statement, will receive 15 grand credit on the account. Now, because they owe $15,000 anyway, they'll get a credit of $15,000. So therefore, those two amounts will cancel each other out, which means that the only amount of money they have to pay to the ATO will be the GST and any PAYG installments if they're on the activity statements at the same time. So they're the two things that you need to look at. So there's no cash payment in that case. The cash payment is the fact that you didn't have to go and pay the 15 grand to the ATO. So in effect, reverse engineer, you should have 15 grand worth more of cash flow. This client will also receive $30,000 credit on the 28th of July and another $15,000 credit on their account on the 28th of October. Okay. Now let's assume that in the October quarter they have actually closed the doors. They're not actually working. Well, then you will get the incentive amount anyway. Okay, because it's based upon the first period. This next one here is more so a monthly payout. This is for bigger businesses who have to do their they're called IASs every month. So this monthly remitter on their March activity statement, they will put down, let's say, $5,000 of IAS. So what the ATO does is, because obviously January and February have been missed, they will times that by 3. And so on the 21st of April, you'll receive $15,000 credit on your activity statement. Okay. Now, remembering it's not going to be a cash payment to you because you actually owe the ATO $5,000. So therefore, there's $15,000 credit to offset what you actually owe. Okay. Then the next month is the month of April. They lodge the IS again. It shows $5,000. Again, we're assuming, I've picked this, that we're assuming that we're paying $5,000 each IS. These obviously numbers can change. We're just trying to show you how the mechanics work. So on the activity statement, they lodge it, they will get a credit. Okay, so it'll cancel each other out. So forth in June. And then in July, they'll get $10,000, which is the amounts of the first tranche, the second tranche together. And then for the next 4 months after July, so August 21st and so forth, the next 4 months, they'll get $7,500. Okay, so if I've done my numbers correctly, that should add up to about $60,000 in the stimulus package. Remember, it's capped at $100,000 as well. Okay. Now, next thing I just wanted to touch on, because this is actually cash in your bank, and this is important. There's a lot of other ATO stimulus stuff that was spoken about before, but I'm not talking about that now. Let's go on to Centrelink. So they've expanded the access. Permanent employees still down or lost their job can get the job seeker, including sole traders, self-employed, casuals, and contract workers. So all eligible to get the new job seeker payment. So what they've done, it's made it different. There's no asset test for 6 months, and the waiting period is waived. Obviously, you've still got an income test, so you can't be, working 4 or 5 days a week and still getting good money and being eligible for this. So there's going to have to be a significant decrease in your income, which is what it kicks in to the amount underneath the Centrelink income test. Now, obviously, if you are being stood down from your employer and you decided to take some annual leave or long service leave, or even if you're sick, and you're taking leave, well, while you're on leave, you're getting paid officially, so you're not eligible at that period of time. Okay, and these are the sort of amounts that you can actually receive. These are the typical job seeker payments depending on your circumstances. Okay, so typically a single person with no children, not earning anything, will be entitled to $565.70, and that's how it's always been. What's happened now is that they'll top you up, even the people who are on these benefits before, by $550 a fortnight for the next 6 months as the coronavirus support payment. And so therefore, in essence, if you were to be stood down not earning any other income, you could be living on $1,115 per fortnight for the next 6 months, hopefully until everyone's back on track. Okay. Again, this video was trying to be as short as possible, trying to get down to the detail. Again, I have been getting heaps and heaps of messages about support that these videos are helping. We are working as hard as we possibly can to get relevant information to you. Where our tech team's working on a calculator now to help you work out your PAYG installments. I can't thank my team enough for how hard they've been working during this process. I also have heaps of sympathy for people that are out there that's doing it tough and have to have their doors shut. Remembering what I've said in the past, this is something that we're all in it together, and it's happening to us all in all different ways. It's going to affect us, but we will get through it as long as we stay strong and get as much information as we can into our system and make the appropriate decisions. We make decisions that are not just temporary, decisions that will last a while. So that's why we implore you as clients and as general people to get advice as much as you can before you make any decisions. So on behalf of the team, I'd just like to say thank you for listening. If any of these things need more further clarification, please do not hesitate to contact myself and my team. And I look forward to talking to you next time we're having one of these things. Bye-bye.